We paid one influencer $60,000 to post one video.
Pushpek Sidhu is a popular digital creator known for his viral videos and a strong following across multiple platforms.
What's your current total audience across all your channels?
Close to 4 million.
I want to hit 100,000. What's a little secret or a trick there?
So the first 100K took me like, you have to be consistent. You have to be comfortable. You can't just post anything.
Is social media evil? When you see an Andrew Tate post and then you see those comment sections saying this is what men should be like, does that upset you?
As a guy, it's not easy to share things, especially when you've been taught your entire life to never share your feelings. You can't cry, you can't show emotions, and it's hard to make that switch. If somebody says man up, what it should really mean should be like,
So most of the time I'm just like, you know what? It's great because I come in, space is already set up. We're good. All right, start rolling.
awesome.
Yeah. But on that note, Pushpek, welcome to Gents Talk.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I peeked your socials. There's a lot of humor in there.
Yep.
And we were talking before we started rolling. You wake up at 12 daily.
Yeah.
And that's because your audience is primarily global, like all over the place. And you've sort of you go to bed what time, you said?
Usually around 4 a.m.
Jeez. Okay, so are you functional at, 2, 3, 4 a.m.? Or are you just like you're ready to knock out?
At like 2, 3 a.m., I'm like editing my content, posting it. Yeah.
Jeez. Okay, is that something you've always done or just because of the nature of the audience of your social accounts?
I think it all started during COVID when, I used to work as a personal trainer at the gym, and all the gyms shut down during COVID.
Yeah.
So I was just playing Call of Duty with my friends, and we were all
Warzone?
staying up until, Warzone. We were staying up until like 3, 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And then I think that kind of became a habit. And then the fact that my wife, that was my girlfriend at the time, lived in California, which was 3 hours behind. I kind of got used to having a delay time.
Yeah.
And then as I started making content, I realized my audience is global, and posting at like 2, 3 a.m. worked a lot better for me than posting in the evening.
Yeah. Do you remember those initial days of the pandemic when we were completely locked down and you'd pull all-nighters playing Warzone, just trying to get one dub, and then going to bed when the sun came up, sleeping for a few hours, getting back up, and then calling the boys and saying, let's run it back? Like those were the days, right?
Those were amazing days.
Yeah.
Those were amazing days.
There's a lot of I realized there's a lot of gamers, a lot of guys who used to be gamers as kids, stopped playing games because they were told that it was bad for them. That picked it back up, myself included, during the pandemic. And now it's a form of social outlet. I hang out with my friends virtually doing that sometimes when I know I can't see them in person. And it's just like, it's such a mental reprieve. And so, you get to let loose and de-stress and stuff like that.
It's a great way because you don't have to go anywhere. You're just staying at home doing it. I mean, I played a lot of video games growing up, but eventually my dad just sold my Xbox without telling me. So yeah.
How did that conversation go?
That wasn't a conversation. It wasn't a choice. It was just come home from school one day. Dad sold the Xbox, told me to start playing outside. Not that I played a lot of Xbox, to be honest. But yeah. So it was fun to be able to go back and play video games. When you finally become an adult, you can buy your own Xbox, do whatever you want. But yeah, it was a fun time playing Warzone with my friends.
So when your dad sold the Xbox and told you, like, go play outside, as an adult now, do you see the value in that decision? No. Maybe not the way it was executed, but do you understand? Do you see the value in the way in why he may have said that?
No, I completely understand why he did it.
Yeah.
Was it the right way of doing it? No, definitely not. I was already a child that played sports, hung out outside, always wanted to be outside with my friends. I played Xbox when I had nothing to do, right? But it was also a great outlet for me to let off steam. As a kid, there was a lot of things going on, and it was nice having something to do, something to take my mind off things. And when Dad took that away, that kind of stung a bit.
Did you ever have the conversation with him since?
Yeah, I've told him a few times.
What has he said?
I mean, he's still a little stubborn about it. He still believed he probably saved my life or something by getting rid of the Xbox and making me play outside. But I mean, I just switched to a computer and started playing on a computer instead.
Right. Yeah. So it worked out one way or the other.
Yeah.
Okay. How's your relationship with your dad?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really good. I mean, obviously there's been ups and downs, right? Growing up with an immigrant father isn't always easy, and we also have an age gap of almost 40 years.
40.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So,
do you have siblings?
I have one sibling, a
Okay.
sister, only 2 years older though.
You paused and you thought about it for a second.
Well, usually people expect me to have like an older sibling that's like 10, 15
Well, that's
years.
why I was asking. Yeah. So 40 years is a large. So even with your sister, it's
Yeah.
38 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they just got married. My parents got married pretty late.
Okay.
Had us pretty late, but we
Yeah.
have a massive generation gap. And although my parents are modern for their age,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you do feel that generation gap, and you can really tell that like they're almost like grandparents more than parents in a way.
Do you ever struggle with that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, when you grow up, like when I hit 15, 16 and see my dad being at like close to his 60s, you start getting worried. Be like, I have to start making money. I have to start helping the family out. I didn't have the same amount of time that most people do to like grow up and take their time in school. I had to start working early. I had my own dreams too, where like I want to go to school longer, maybe become a doctor or something, which my parents would have loved because they're Indian. But at the same time, it was also like, if I wait until I become a doctor, maybe I finish school by 30, dude, my dad's going to be 70 something at that time, right? That's too late for me to start helping out.
So you made that decision based on what's the fastest route to helping out financially? Did you want to be a doctor?
Well, some kind of like doctor or physiotherapist or something. I did think about going back to school and study more, but I felt like I didn't have time for it. And I also wanted to put more of an effort into sports.
Okay.
But at the same time, sports can be expensive.
In Canada especially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And it just felt like, you know what, I probably need to stop all this stuff and just start working.
So walk me through how did your parents react to going from, you said you were a personal trainer, you had ideas of going to medical school, to making TikToks? Not to diminish the concept of making TikToks, but when you think about it in hindsight, you go, I'm either going to pursue this traditional, supposedly stable career path, or I'm going to make videos online and hope that people watch it and that I can somehow turn this into an actual job. How did that process happen? What was your parents' reactions to all of that? And maybe what's their reaction to it today now that you've seen the success that you've seen?
Yeah. I mean, my parents liked it right away, especially Dad. He has a history of being in drama school and doing theater in India. So for him,
helps.
it was something.
Yeah.
He always wanted me to go into like film or acting or something. And I was always against it. And this is probably the closest thing.
Wait, he wanted you to go into it?
Yeah, when I was a kid.
Oh, no way. And you were against it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
now I'm kind of getting closer to it,
Yeah.
or at least going in that direction, and he's loving that. But when he came to like doing this as a career, it was a tough decision to make. But with all the gyms shut down during COVID, I had to make money from somewhere.
Sure.
Started making a few videos. They started blowing up, and then I started thinking, okay, maybe, just maybe, I should start working in this field, right? I got a job as a social media manager, and then I switched positions a few times, different corporations, but eventually worked my way up the ladder a little bit, and I learned a lot about marketing, right? And I had a full-time salary job while I was growing my social medias.
Yeah.
to a point where just a few months ago, I stopped working, and I'm not full time in social media. But I waited for that. I waited until I was making enough money to like sustain my lifestyle with just social media before I start working in corporate.
So for anyone listening or watching who is interested in pursuing the social media path, I think there was an interesting little tidbit in there that you said where you waited until you can actually replace your income with social media income, which means you treated your social media stuff as a side hustle until you got to that point where it could become full-time.
Yeah.
I've encountered a lot of creators, especially recently, who have, how do I put this? They've fallen into the trap of believing that they'll make it on social media no matter what. They just have to keep posting content, and they kind of take that leap a little too early, and then they find themselves struggling because they're not getting the contracts or the deals or the brand deals. And so then they pull back, and now they have to go find another job again. What advice would you give those creators who are thinking about making the leap into full-time creation but are a little bit hesitant, or the ones who are about to do it, they're going to do it no matter what? What would you say to these people?
Well, the thing is, having a job or something like that can also hold you back, right? It held me back from going to LA and places like that and collaborating with people. But at the same time, you can go and collaborate with people in LA, but then you have to come home. Then you have to go and pay the bills, right? Which isn't the easiest thing to do with social media, because some months you'll make a lot of money, other months you'll make nothing, right? Here in Canada, social media doesn't pay the best.
Yeah.
If you're in the US, it's a completely different story. But my advice would be to like hold on to your job as long as you can while it's not like holding you back from growing. And that too, like with my job, I specifically, as I start growing within marketing, I specifically started looking for remote jobs or jobs where I'll have more time to work on my own content too at the same time. And I also picked jobs specifically that gave me skills that will help me, right? When I was a social media manager, I was running influencer campaigns from the other side, right? So I kind of learned the other side of the business, which is now really helpful for me when I need to land my own brand deals.
So what's a little secret or a trick there? Someone looking to bring on a brand deal, they're starting out in this space. One, how do you grow an account? I think that's the biggest thing. I think everyone is curious. Like, how do you grow your following? How do you grow? I think more importantly, because we see some accounts that have big followings, but they've got no community. How do you build a community? People who are actually there for you, who want to follow you, engage with you, they want to get to know you. How do you cultivate something like that?
Well, you got to be consistent, right? Consistency is a big key. I mean, I've been making a video almost every day since COVID, right? That's thousands of videos.
That's a lot of videos,
right? You don't have to do it that much, but that's the reason, like, I have a community, because every day they're waiting for the next video to come up. It's just a part of their daily life to see one of my videos pop up on their feed, right? That consistency is huge with building community, because they kind of expect something, right? YouTubers used to do that a lot, where they're like, oh, I'm going to post 2 videos a week, Monday and Thursday. So every Monday and Thursday, their community waits for that video to come out. Right. So that was a huge key. And it also helps a lot with growing, of course. Right. And then you also need to look at what your audience wants. Right. I built recently, a lot of my audience have grown from me making food related content. Right. If tomorrow I just completely stop making food content, I'm not respecting why they came to me, why they started appreciating my content, right?
Do you find that limits you, though?
It does.
I mean, there's more to your personality than the food that you consume.
No, for sure. Sometimes I do make content like I used to, any other different topic, and I'll see comments being like, stick to food videos, stick to what you know. But dude, I just started making food videos like 6 months ago.
Does that upset you?
No, you build tough skin on social media, right? Especially in the beginning. Everyone hates on you. Your friends hate on you. Your community hates on you. Nobody really wants to support you. Everyone just thinks you're cringe, right? So you start building tougher skin, and then as you grow, like, you realize you build that own community, and now if somebody drops a hate comment somewhere under my videos, some other like 13, 12, 10-year-old kids are just going to start spamming them and defending me, right? So you build your own little like community army that just sits there and defends you all the time. So it's not something that bothers me anymore.
But at the beginning, when you talk about those, moments where you post the video that you worked so hard on, your friends wouldn't support you, they called you cringe, your videos wouldn't do as well as you'd hope for them to do, and how did you there's a lot of negativity that comes out of that. There's a lot of negative self-talk that comes out of that. Like, why am I even doing this? This video sucks. Nobody likes it. My friends don't even like it. What was that like?
Well, it does get to you sometimes. Sometimes you're just sitting there and be like, dude, what am I doing? Right? This is just embarrassing.
Man.
Your confidence starts dropping. But that's the thing. Like, if you work on your own self-confidence, nothing's going to bother you. Nobody's going to bother you.
How do you do that? How did you do that?
I mean, one thing that a lot of men will start doing is working out.
Okay.
Right? That does build confidence. And being a personal trainer for those 5 years did help my confidence a lot. I was never a big, huge guy, but just being fit, being healthy.
Being fit is, I think, the most important part of it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And being healthy was a huge deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
Being in a secure, good relationship was also really helpful because I'm not there looking for anyone, looking for things, looking to impress anyone because I already have somebody with me.
Yeah.
Right? And the fact that my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, was so supportive of this was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Right? The one most important person in your life is supporting you. So then friends or extended friends or people that you used to know in high school won't really bother you.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in front of you saying, I want to start a channel. I want to grow it. I want to become, what's your current total audience across all your channels? What's the number?
I think it's about 3.5, close to 4 million.
I'll take like 100,000 of those. That's it. But I'm sitting in front of you. I want to start a channel. I want to do all these things. I want to grow. I want to hit 100,000. Forget 3-4 million, 100,000. What do I need to do? What's the first step?
Start making content. Get a camera in front of you.
Yeah.
Get comfortable with yourself. I mean, the first 100K is the hardest to grow.
Yeah.
Right? On Instagram, I probably hit 100K last summer. Right? And now I hit 1 million.
Yeah.
So the growth, like the curve is almost like, what do you call it, exponential.
Yeah.
Right? So the first 100K took me like 3 years to get, right? I never had that moment where some people just blow up, right? They just become hype.
Yeah.
And they just blow up like crazy. They go off on TikTok and all of a sudden you see somebody with like 20K followers get to 5 million in like 3-4 weeks. And they just have crazy growth, right? I never had that happen to me. But I got close to it in the last few months when I started making food content, where stuff just started blowing up and I started growing a lot on YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah.
But to grow your first 100, you have to be consistent. You have to be comfortable. Like in my first videos, like I used to hate my voice. It sounded so weird because I never heard my voice before.
Yeah.
Right? But now it's like second nature to me. Looking at your face from a different angle, like whether it's a mirrored camera, non-mirrored, it feels weird when you're not used to it.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to get comfortable with things like that. And then just, again, consistency is key, right? You need quality content, of course. You can't just post anything, but you also need to know who you're entertaining because it is entertainment at the end. Whether it's like you're talking about politics, you're still entertaining people that want to know more about politics. If it's about food, you're just pleasing people who maybe just want to hear or see food, right? It's weird, but it's all entertainment. It's all keeping somebody
entertainment,
busy,
like
right?
entertaining the audience ultimately is the key to keeping your content growing and viral and keeping the eyeballs on it, which is pretty much like anything, a movie, a film, a television show, whatever. Is it true that you have to be in a specific niche to grow? Because one of the challenges, at least that I've encountered personally, has always been I'm not one-dimensional. I have a very complex personality like we all do, and I like so many different things, and I want to talk about all of these things. But to a point that you made earlier, you started making food content, and now when you try to branch out, people say to you, stick to the food content.
Yeah.
Can you actually grow an account with multiple interests, or do you have to zero in on a niche and then expand?
I don't believe in the whole niche thing.
Okay. Why?
I mean, especially when you start to grow, you'll always see these videos come up with, these are the tips, this is how to grow, this is how to do whatever, and they will always talk about niche, right? If you have like 10K followers and you focus on a niche, you're not going to grow much, right? Because you're just limiting yourself, right? When you talk about everything, something is going to work well. You can figure out what works well and just focus a little bit more over that to grow.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, most people that follow me do not follow me for food. They follow me for me, right? Whether that's my personality or that just how I joke, or they just find me funny in general, right? So I can, I mean, people might not love when I make non-food related content, but it still does well on social media, right? There's just a few people hating on it, but there's 30 times more people enjoying it, right?
Can you make a good living off social media?
Yeah, you definitely can.
What's a good living? You don't have to get into specifics, by the way, but like just general, like what is a deal? What could a deal look like?
I mean, it depends, right? Like a lot of times, small businesses will reach out to you, right? They don't have budgets. They don't know anything about marketing. They don't have they probably just hired an agency or something for marketing, or just hired like one little, college intern or like a high school girl or something to run their marketing, or maybe it's a family member. So it's hard to charge people like that a lot, but at the same time, you gotta charge them something because you have to value yourself.
Sure.
Right. And when you come from an immigrant background, people of the same background will not take you as seriously,
and they will deal.
Yeah, they'll want like free stuff. Right. I literally got a message today about hosting a big event, which is like televised and will probably have a few million people watching it without pay.
Wow.
Right. So things like that happen. No, I'm not taking it.
Would the value of hosting a televised event with potentially millions of people outweigh getting paid?
Well, I'll get those views on social media anyways.
Okay.
Right. So I can reach that many people regardless.
Yeah.
So why would I do that for free? And hosting something like for a few hours is a pretty big deal, right? It's work. Right?
It's quite intensive. Yeah.
So I wouldn't do something like that for free. Now, if you ask me to host an event where Drake's popping up or something, that's a different story.
Right.
Right.
There's an added value to something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I do look at things like that. But when it comes to big brands, what I've learned from working at the other end of the whole social media business, ask for a lot. Because a lot of these brands have money.
Yeah.
The last company that I worked for before I quit my job, we paid one influencer $60,000 to post one video.
How many followers did that influencer have?
Across social media, 7-8 million maybe.
Does the size of the following matter as much these days, or is it the engagement?
It's both. It's both, right? You'll see some people that have millions of followers, but their videos are not even getting 20-30K views, right? But then you see somebody, even when I was growing, when I had 100K followers, I was still getting 200-400K views on every single video consistently on Instagram, right? That's something I look for in other creators, right? So when I used to look for people to work with, look for people to get brand deals, I would look for people that got a lot of views, got a lot of engagement with small amount of followings, because they were cheaper too, right? But I would always, whenever I found small creators, I would always overpay them, because I knew how much work it was from the other end.
That's nice of you.
And I knew the business had a lot of money. As long as I get the results,
sure,
it doesn't matter how much money I spend.
Yeah. So is there a platform that's, if you're starting from scratch, is there a platform that's better to start on? TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts?
I would say TikTok.
Okay.
Right. YouTube Shorts has been amazing. That's been a big driver of my growth. But do you remember Vine?
Mm-hmm.
Right. When that first came, I wanted to make videos on it, but I was still shy. I was maybe, I don't know, 15, 16, something at that time. And right when I downloaded it, they got bought out and shut down. Like 2 days later, I'm like, oh, well.
So much for that. Yeah.
Exactly. So
yeah.
then I kind of waited. I'm like, I want to know what the next thing is going to be.
Yeah.
And Musically showed up. TikTok showed up.
Musically was TikTok before it was called TikTok.
Exactly. Yeah. And I wasn't downloading it. I don't want it. I'm like, this is cringe. This is weird. Even though I was telling myself, what's the next big thing? I need to find the next big thing. And it was actually my wife that got me on it. And somebody reached out to her. She had a friend that reached out to her. Be like, okay, we're trying to get people on TikTok. We pay people to post this many videos in a month. Right? It was pocket change, but I mean, I'll take it. It was US dollars too, so like,
yeah,
I'll take
not?
it.
Yeah.
Right? I did it. You got some clout. It felt good, and you just kept posting.
Yeah.
Right? So it's crazy that my wife actually got me to start doing this stuff. Right? I was never gonna make social media content. Right? I was just gonna do my own fitness thing, maybe open a gym or something.
Yeah.
And then I just took a complete U-turn.
Wow. Are you still based out of Toronto?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said your wife's based out of was in California.
Mm-hmm.
She's a psychotherapist.
Yeah.
What's it like being married to a psychotherapist? Does every conversation feel like you're being therapized?
I mean, not really. Not really.
I've always wanted to ask that.
I always had an open mind. The thing is, too, I started dating her when she was learning it.
Okay.
Right? I started dating her when she started her master's. When she just decided, you know, maybe I'm going to be a therapist.
Yeah.
Right? So I saw her growth, and I think I grew with her because she learned things, shared them with me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like she shows up in my life and starts correcting everything I do.
Right.
Right? It wasn't like that. People would imagine it might have been like that, but it wasn't. I learned a lot from her. I was always very open as a person to learning things.
Yeah.
But she helped me grow a lot. She made me a better human being. My relationships with everyone, my dad, my mom, my family, my friends, became better because of her. Right? Just because she made me a better person.
So having the benefits of being married to, or like your closest person on the planet is by trade a therapist, you learn better ways of communication. You learn the importance of opening up and talking about working through your emotions, right? Not just bottling them up like most guys do. There's going to be guys in your audience who will hear this and go, that's not the definition of a man. A man doesn't talk about his emotions. He doesn't share his emotions. He doesn't cry or show weakness or anything like that, because then you're not a man.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to those guys?
Well, they say men don't show their emotions, right? Those are the same people that if I ask them what a man is supposed to be like, they're supposed to raise a good family, right? They're supposed to be the head of the family.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to be the head of the family if you can't show your family the right way, right? How are you going to take care of a family if you can't listen to your kids' own emotions, right? It's more than just making money, right? Being the leader of your family is more than just providing for your family, right? Providing like financially.
Mm-hmm.
You need to provide to them like mentally too, right? I mean, once you start opening up, you just realize how much better your life becomes, right? How much better your relationships become. But it's hard. It's hard to tell somebody. I mean, a lot of us guys, we grew up and you just kept getting it like, people just shove it down your throat that like, you can't cry, you can't show emotions, right? And we become very stern and emotionless, and it's hard to make that switch, right? And open up. But it's helpful when you find somebody that can help you do that, right? It's because if you do it alone, it's not going to be easy, because you're going to go to your boys, share something, but they're the same as you, right? They don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, get over it, or
man up.
Man up. Yeah, that's the big one. Are
I don't even know what that means anymore.
Yeah.
And people say it's just like, what is it? Tell me, what do you want me to do?
Exactly. Like I'm not just gonna go to the gym and work off my emotions, right? Somebody hurt me. I'm not just gonna go to the gym and start working out.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, I feel like that definition of man up should change.
What would you say then? What would you replace it with?
If somebody says man up, what it should really mean should be like open up, right? Start thinking about what you're doing, what's going on, right? Feel your feelings, feel your emotions, right? We humans can get angry, right? Because it's a natural emotion to feel angry about something.
Yeah.
But it's also a natural emotion to feel sad, right? To cry. Like, if you ever cry and you have like a long, big cry, you feel amazing afterwards.
Yeah, you really
right?
do. Yeah.
It really like gets rid of so much stress.
Yeah.
And you realize why some women cry, because, dude, it helps.
Feels good.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you hold that in, we just learn to channel that into anger as men, right?
And I think a lot of guys struggle with this notion because they think that you're going to walk around crying to everybody.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. It's, do it in the privacy of your home or with someone that you trust and you care about who will not judge you and will care for you, and just get rid of those emotions, work through them, feel them, move on.
Exactly.
You become you become a stronger man in that way. You become the version of the man that you're saying you should be by doing those things.
Exactly. A person that can handle their emotions and can like let them out and know when to let them out, where to let them out, is way stronger than somebody that just channels everything into anger because they bottle everything up.
Man. I mean, anger is an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And we get these, when you talk about hate comments, we get a lot of comments like that too, where guys will say, like, you're creating a generation of weak men, you're encouraging weak men. And I try not to engage with them in the comments, right? Because, I mean, this, it's a useless exercise. It's not going to go anywhere. But every so often, I try to poke a little bit and I just go, explain to me why you think that is.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I have not yet encountered an argument, because I'm open to it. If there's an argument out there for why this approach is wrong, I want to hear it. And so far, every argument I've heard has failed to convince me, or anyone for that matter, that that's the best approach. I did a podcast where I was the guest, and we were talking about Middle Eastern men. So I'm from Lebanon. We were talking about Middle Eastern men and how Middle Eastern men are typically raised to be strong but silent.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they grow up into very aggressive men who, shout and yell and are physical and have no control over their emotions. And in the comments, other Arab men would talk about how I'm the definition of a weak man. I'm a feminine man. No other men should hear this. There's a reason I'm in Canada and not still in the Middle East. Some stupidness like that. And then in the same comment section were a bunch of women saying, it's so refreshing to hear a Middle Eastern man speak this way, because this is what we want.
Yeah.
And you can see the contrast between what men are thinking and what women are thinking. The men are thinking that if they stay strong and silent, the women will find them attractive. The women are simply saying, that's not the case at all, right? At a distance, this might look nice, but up close and personal, it's quite ugly to look at.
Well, the thing is, change is uncomfortable, right?
100%.
And these men that know they need to change, like somewhere deep inside they know they need to change, right? Because things in their life is not working out great. Maybe their wife don't love them because how aggressive they are. Maybe they're not getting along with their parents or something.
Yeah, their job. And I think the pandemic made all that worse.
Exactly. And it makes them uncomfortable because they see somebody else who has made that change, right? And it makes them think about maybe they should change too. It makes them uncomfortable. They get defensive, and then they feel the need to comment, right? Because if I see a video that I feel uncomfortable, why do I need to comment on it? The only reason I'm going to comment is because I get defensive. It bothers me. It gets me really uncomfortable, right? Otherwise, why would I comment anything negative about somebody else's video, right? It doesn't affect my life in any way, but a lot of people are worried that like if all the men around me starts changing, I have to change too, right? Whether it's for the better or the worse.
And they're not ready for it.
Exactly, right? They're not ready to have that conversation. But I mean, it's a step in the right direction. The fact that your video is popping up on their feed, right? It gets people thinking. It takes time. I mean, when I was younger, I wasn't the best man I could be, right? I'm pretty sure I was a little more aggressive. I wasn't feeling my emotions the way I should be.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because that's how we grow up, right? I mean, I grew up in Punjabi family, right? Similar to you, we grew up to be men, like old stereotypically manly men, right? They work hard for their family. Like, we come from a history of farmers. Like, we were the ones providing for the family. We used to work hard. And we didn't have time to share emotions, right? We didn't have, like, I mean, my grandparents and their ancestors did not have the luxury of sharing their emotions, right? Because they have to go and work the next day, right? They have to go pull 14 hours in a farm without any equipment, like any mechanical equipment to help you, right? So people learned to bottle that up. And what a lot of our people did, they started bottling things up with alcohol, right? They started resorting to alcohol because they can't share their emotions with anyone. Let's just drink.
Let's just numb the pain.
Yeah. And for me, I have never understood how somebody can drink alone, sitting alone, drink like completely alone and get drunk without anyone there. Because when I drink, I'll just have a few drinks with my friends to have fun, right? I don't need it to have fun, but sometimes I will, right? But people will get drunk on their own, just sitting in their garage at home because they can't share their emotions. What kind of life is that? Is that a manly thing to do? No, because those people are not there for their kids. Those kids are going to grow up hating their dad, right? And if they have a son, he's either going to end up being a great kid who loves his own kids, or he's going to go the same route because he didn't have a father figure, right? And he might resort to alcohol too because he has also pain. And if he sees, okay, that's what works for my dad, maybe it'll work for me too, right? But if all that father did was share his emotions with his kids, with his family, learn how to regulate, learn how to feel his feelings, that family would not be destroyed by alcohol, right? And it happens a lot in our community. I see it all the time. Families just getting destroyed by one dad who just starts drinking too much, right? And again, I know there's a lot of pain involved, right? And I don't blame the dad because he didn't learn anything from his own dad, right? It's generational. It's a cycle that just continues. But when they say our generation is weak men, dude, we're the strongest men because we're breaking those cycles, right? Breaking that cycle is harder than anything else. So if anything, they can call us feminine, they can call us whatever they want. We're way stronger than they were because the stuff we have to deal with is just different, right? Breaking the cycle is not easy. We're lucky though. We're lucky. We have information, right? They didn't have information on the side. They didn't have internet. We can, like you said, play Warzone and get support for a friend who's in a different country, right? Just playing Warzone with them online. They couldn't do anything. Maybe they could call somebody, but
you have to get a calling card or
exactly.
Okay, so you have this massive platform, and the way you speak so eloquently about modern masculinity and how we're actually stronger men, which I love, by the way. Have you ever used your platform to try to spread that kind of messaging and awareness, to say, you know, there's more to us than what meets the eye, like talking to some of the guys in your community to say, don't become like our fathers, our grandfathers, break that cycle because perhaps they're stuck in that cycle and they don't know what the outlet is?
I have mentioned it. I have made videos on it in the past.
What's the feedback been like?
I mean, it's what you'd assume it to be like. some people say it's refreshing, people that are open up, and it's usually women that say it's refreshing.
Yeah.
But then you have those guys that would just be like, oh, you're just a weak, feminine man. You're not man enough. You don't know, blah, blah, blah. But thing is, when you actually go to those comments and you look at their profiles, you'll realize these are just 12-year-old kids, right? That's why I don't take them to heart either, because a lot of these comments are kids that look up to people like Andrew Tate. Like, what would you expect? So then it becomes more of a, maybe I need to be a role model, right? But then at the same time, it's not my responsibility to be their role model either.
Why not?
Because I'm not their parent. I'm not. If I take on every kid's, like, if I take on the responsibility of being a role model for every kid, that's a lot on me too, right?
Oh, sure.
I
yeah.
can't
you
be
have to
myself
balance and
to the
protect
same.
yourself. Yeah.
Exactly, right? But at the same time, I want to be a role model for kids because I didn't have any growing up, right? Especially from my own community, right? There was no Punjabi guy up there or Indian guy up there that I could see on TV and be like, I want to be like him.
Yeah.
Right? I had to find other role models.
That didn't look like you.
Exactly.
So if you're from where you're sitting, you say, and I understand the argument, by the way, I'm not criticizing it, but I want to challenge you a moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you're saying from where you're sitting, it's not your responsibility, given the size of your platform, to play the role model role. But then you see these 12-year-old young boys who are now molded by influencers, and I'm going to put quotations around influencers like Andrew Tate, who will spew a certain version of masculinity that's very aggressive, basically calls you a failure unless you're somehow making millions of dollars driving a Bugatti and living on an island surrounded by women in bikinis. You're a failure.
Yeah.
How do you, knowing that, seeing that, and then bringing in your own experience of not having that type of role model growing up, how do you balance that contradiction? Knowing that the same young men that look up to an Andrew Tate are also in your comment section because they follow you, they watch your videos, and you have that ability to really speak to them. How do you balance that?
Well, what I do is I try to drop in hints every now and then, right? If something's going on at the Olympics, I might post about it in my story, right? I might not make a video ranting about it because those same kids will lose interest and they will just leave, right? You have to slowly get them into it, slowly have them open up to it. So like if let's say like I used to make a lot of videos roasting people that kind of diss Indian food in a way.
Okay.
Like, and sometimes a woman would eat it the wrong way. And when I would make a reaction to a woman, I make sure I tone it down compared to a man, right? But then every now and then you'll see comments that are really misogynistic, right? So I would make sure I would respond to those comments, right? Pin those comments like a little pin of shame. But so other kids, yeah. But so when other kids come and read those comments, they can see my response right at the top.
Yeah.
So they can think twice before because they probably want to comment the same thing, but they can think twice before they comment. And when they see responses to my comment, we're like, oh, dude, I never thought about that. They start thinking like that too, be like, maybe I need to think about that.
It's funny because I've had a couple of those kinds of conversations too, where in the comment section, somebody would criticize, something I had said around masculinity and how it's okay to, to not be okay and to work through things. And I would engage in a conversation. And then I remember this one particular gent who then sent me a DM saying, hey man, listen, I don't know you. You don't know me. I saw your video. I didn't mean to come across aggressive, but I have a question for you. Can I ask? I said, sure. And I thought it was a setup at first because I'm like, this is a little bit strange, but okay. And the question turned out to be, how do I find a good group of men in my life that I can actually have conversations with? Because I don't have those guys. And whenever I am feeling all this pent up emotion, I have no outlets for it. And so I don't know where to show it. I don't know how to show it because I've never been taught. and the people that are in my circle will criticize and laugh at me. And it was such an honest question. And it almost broke my heart because it just reminded me how there's so many men out there that are in so much pain with no outlets. And that's why they resort to the alcohol. That's why they resort to the drugs. That's why they resort to suicide. That's why they resort to aggressive behavior and violence against their partners and themselves and their children and all of these different things. And it's like, how do we help those men?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my current struggle is. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but how do we encourage more and more men to realize that it's okay? Saying, you know what, today I had an argument with my partner and she got me really upset. I'm really angry. I'm anxious now. I can't focus. I'm messing up my work. That admitting all of that doesn't make you less of a man, because people are going to see this episode with you.
Yeah.
The same 12-year-olds, the same men in your comment section are going to see this episode and they're going to think and feel a certain way.
Yeah.
How do we bridge that gap?
Well, a lot of people would say like, oh, we don't take men's mental health as seriously as we do women's. We don't care about men. A lot of people would say stuff like that. And I feel like the biggest hurdle to men's mental health is men, right? It's our own attitudes, right? I mean, if your friend is struggling, don't make fun of him. Listen to him. Let him open up. Give him space to open up. Don't be like, just get over it, right? You're just contributing to it, right? If your friend is feeling like shit, don't just take him on a night out and then think you're done with it. You helped your friend. He should be fine now. He might have fun for a night, but the next day he's going to feel like shit, right? I mean, we men have to start talking to our other friends, right? We have to open up ourselves, but we have to help our friends open up too, right? I mean, every woman would love to see men open up more. Or almost every woman would like that, to see men open up more, be more vulnerable, right? But men are the ones stopping men from opening up, and then they're like, oh, nobody cares about men's mental health. You don't care about men's mental health. That's why, like, that's what's holding us back.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm curious when you say, like most women want men to work through their stuff. I agree with you, by the way. I'm fascinated though, because when you see an Andrew Tate post and then you see the women in those comment sections saying this is what men should be like, and then you imagine you're a 12-year-old boy following an Andrew Tate. In the comment section, this pretty woman goes, this is what a real man looks like. You start to associate the two together and go, okay, so if I want to grow up to be strong, rich, powerful, and have a pretty girl, I need to be like this guy. Because that's what's being reinforced and fed to me. How do we extract those young men from this cycle, from this loop?
Oh, you need to teach them to be more critical of things they see, right? It's something you don't learn in high school that much, but you need to learn critical thinking, right? Because if I go into his comment section, I see a pretty woman commenting, supporting Andrew Tate, being like, oh, that's what a man should be like. Chances are, if I click on that profile, she's selling something to those men who are stupid enough to like fall for anything they see, and she's just using them. She probably doesn't even believe that. She's just using those guys, right? Because those are easy targets, right? And if you look at other women who might comment on those supporting posts of Andrew Tate, a lot of them are women that are just stuck in the same cycle of abusive men. They're just like okay with it because that's all they know. For them, love is abusive. For them, love is being dominated by a guy. They don't know any better. So that's maybe how their dad was. So that's how they think every guy should be.
That's terrible.
It is. It is horrible.
It's so sad.
It is.
Fuck. I don't even know how you fix that.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, as a society, we have to come together and help people. Like, you can't fix people's lives one by one. right?
Takes a village.
Exactly, it does.
So, okay. I got to go back then to the social media part of it, because we're talking about the rise of these male influencers. Again, I'm going to put quotation marks around that because, like, for obvious reasons. Is social media evil? Like, is the concept of social media just bad, considering these young kids are growing up with no ability to critically think? They go on these platforms where they spend hours a day on these platforms. They don't even text their friends anymore. They just DM each other.
Mm-hmm.
So they're on these platforms, they're seeing these types of videos. It's reinforcing this feedback loop as their brains are so easily, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's easy to basically influence them.
Mm-hmm.
Is social media the problem?
No, it's not. I mean, if a kid can be easily influenced by something they see online, their parents haven't made them secure enough, right? If you remove social media from it, go back like 30 years, that same kid would easily be influenced by the cool kids who are smoking cigarettes, right? That kid would easily be influenced by their uncle who does bad stuff, right? If your parents are there for you and they really make sure they're there for their kids, they have great attachment growing up, the kid feels really confident and secure, nothing is going to influence that kid, right? I had tons of friends that went into drugs. I had tons of friends that went into the whole alcohol lifestyle part, but I never had any interest in it, right? It never affected me. I never felt like, oh, I need to do this to have fun, because I was secure with my parents, how my parents taught me to like not do drugs and stuff, right? So if you as a parent can teach your kid, well, something on social media should not influence them. It should not radicalize them in any sense. That only happens if your kid is looking for something. Your kid is looking for validation elsewhere, maybe, right? And they get that validation by making Andrew Tate edits and posting them online, right? Because a ton of other kids who also need validation will just comment supporting stuff, be like, this is a guy, top G, alpha male, sigma male, so beta, whatever, stupid. Right? I don't even know why we're using Greek letters for things, but it's ridiculous.
So dumb.
Yeah.
Honestly, the whole thing is so dumb. These guys are just, they're peddling a product to an audience of impressionable young men, and it's working.
Yeah.
And the algorithms are picking it up because they're getting the engagement. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's just that social media is the tool, and if you use it effectively, it'll work in any direction you send it. But this next generation of young men are falling into these traps of thinking that you have to be this top G.
Yeah.
I laugh every time I say it because it's such a dumb thing. It's sad to see, but there's also, in my mind, I try to look at things. If there's something negative, I'm going to try to find the positive in it. I did a talk recently at St. Mike's College, which is an all-boys high school here in Toronto. And grade 12, every year at the end of the year, they do a retreat before they go off to university. And the administration of the school asks these boys, what do you want your keynote to be about for your retreat? And they said, we want to talk about men's mental health.
Wow.
Because we see what's happening in the world. We've had friends struggle with it. We're about to embark on this next really big, intimidating chapter of our lives, going into university. We're all going our separate ways. We don't even know how to show up for ourselves, let alone our friends. So we need someone who can come in and talk to us just about how to have these conversations, how to normalize conversations between friends, guys. And when they brought me on to do this talk, I was just astonished by the fact that this group of grade 12, right? Like when I was in grade 12, I didn't even know the words mental health.
Exactly.
Like I didn't even piece those together.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're already thinking in that way, I think speaks to your point earlier of how this generation of young men is stronger than the last generation.
100%.
And while they get a lot of shit and flack for, the way they show up in the world or respond to things, there's still something to be said about the fact that they're at least aware of themselves aware of their emotions and are willing to go through the uncomfortable path of figuring out how to move forward. And I think that's the positive in all of it.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do we support that other block of young men who are struggling, right? The ones that are in the poor countries across the world, the ones that are in war-torn areas in the world going, I'm looking for some male role model who can just show me, some sort of positivity. What does positive masculinity look like, right? Where I don't have to think I have to be aggressive with my sisters or my mom to show dominance. I don't have to impress my dad that way, or, be strong and intimidate my girlfriend so that she thinks of me as this strong power. Like, how do we change those narratives, I guess, is the broader question. And I don't expect you to have an answer. I'm just kind of like spitballing here. But yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the overall challenge. When, like, I love the way you speak about all of this because it's so important. And I'm curious if you could speak to the gents in your audience right now. Imagine I'm the screen and they're watching. What would you say to them?
I mean, there's a lot I would want to say. But first of all, like, know that you're not alone, right? As a guy, it's easy to feel lonely, right? It can be really hard sharing things with your father because he might be strict. He might not even be there in the picture, and he might not be there for you when you need him. It can be tough sharing things with friends because your friends might not even care. They might be like, get over it. It's not a big deal. Don't be such a girl, right? You got to find your people, right? You got to find people that respect you, respect your emotions. And it's not easy. Things take time, but things do get better. Just don't lose who you were as a person. Because when we were kids, we were nice, we were friendly, we were playing with each other. Don't lose that on the inside. Don't become a rock, right? With no emotions. Life is so much more than just working and providing for people, right? Life is so much more than just being behind the scenes, right? Life, it's your life. It's about you. Live it the way you want to live it. But remember, you're not going to enjoy life if you don't have a community around you, right? If you don't share your emotions, if you don't build that attachment with people, when you grow older, there's not going to be anyone around you to help you, right? You're not going to have, like, you don't want to start resorting to alcohol and things like that, right?
Yeah.
You really want to make sure you build that community. You want to make sure you really open up yourself and let other people, let yourself be part of other people's community too, right? Nobody's going to come, like, out of their way and just start supporting you for no reason, right? You have to be there for others too, right? And as a guy, you're not alone. Things get better. You're gonna find people. Like, you might be in high school or you might be middle school or something. You might be in a city situation where you don't have people around you, but things do change, right? You go off to university, college, you meet way more open-minded people than you did in high school, right? People that didn't grow up with you, people that came from different places in the world, right? And even social media, you can find your own communities, whether that's a gaming community, whether that's an anime community, whatever it is, there's always people there for you. I don't remember the quote, but there is one scene from, like, One Piece, the anime, where there's a guy that just tells Nico Robin, one of the main characters, that you can always find people for you. There is people here in the world for you, right? That you always have somebody that's, like, there for you.
Man, that's awesome. What would you say to the women? So you're in a position where you're married to a therapist and you've seen the benefits of having a supportive, loving partner who also allows you the space to go through what you're going through, to work through what you're going through. I've been in, I don't know about you, but I've been in past relationships where that was not an option. I'm in one now and it's night and day, so much better.
Yeah.
So what would you say to women listening to this, watching this, who know a man struggling with something, are dating or married to a man who's going through something, and they're curious about how they can show up better to support that person that they care about? What would you say to them?
Well, the best way is usually to listen, right? I mean, it's not your job to be your partner's therapist, right? My wife is not my therapist. She doesn't do therapy on me, right? We have made sure that's not a thing, right? So I'm not asking anyone to like fix their man or something like that, but try to look at things from their perspective, right? As a guy, it's not easy to share things, right? Especially when you've been taught your entire life to never share your feelings, right? Yeah. So we need that extra space, that extra time to learn how to share things. And again, it's not the woman's job to be the therapist, but encourage therapy maybe. Encourage him to go out with his friends and share things with his friends. He doesn't have to share everything with you, but if you can somehow encourage him to go to therapy, that's a huge step, because most guys will be like, I don't believe in therapy. That's not a real thing. That doesn't work. But if you can get them to that first step, that's huge, because honestly, everyone needs therapy of some sort, right? Even my wife goes to therapy. Like most therapists go to therapy,
yeah,
right? Because they know how important it is, right? Even if you're like, what you think is perfect mental health, a therapist would probably still make you better, right? We forget, but like most of our life goes with like, I mean, half of it is just our body going through things, walking around, daily life, sitting, jumping, doing whatever. But most of our life is spent just thinking about things, right?
Yep.
And just having thoughts, right? So your mental health should be a priority. Like if your entire life is just thoughts being combined. But if you think about it in a very simple way, it is just thoughts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you want to know how to deal with those thoughts, right? You want to know how to manage those thoughts and organize those thoughts, if anything, and just make life better for yourself. Therapy is not necessarily to help people around you, it's to help you.
Yeah.
Right? But if like a family's having an intervention, telling the dad, oh, start going to therapy, he might think that's for him, that's for everyone else, for their lives to be better. He doesn't think it's for him, right? So you need to like kind of convince him that, dude, this is for you, for your life to be better. And it's very difficult to just tell somebody who hates the thought of therapy, like, oh, you should go to a therapist, right? That's never going to work. You have to start small. You have to start opening up with friends, opening up with your family, right? And then slowly, maybe you'll start thinking about therapy.
Damn. Again, I wish we had more time here. Like we could do a part 2 to this, just talking about this stuff. But I was just going to say we had the psychotherapist for an NBA team on the podcast. Incredible speaker. She's fantastic. And she talked about how we should be treating therapy more as a proactive thing as opposed to just reactive. We typically go to therapy only when something happens. But if you go just to proactively put you in a position where if something were to happen, you're better prepared and equipped to deal with it, that's actually better for you, so you're not always showing up broken and miserable. Brother, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. Thank you
for having me.
No, honestly, thank you. I love the personality or the person that shows up the way you do. Keep doing that, especially if you've got the platform that you do. I think you do such incredible work. And thank you for sharing your time with me. This was fantastic, and I can't wait for people in both our audience and your audience to finally hear you speak in this way. And I'm excited to see where it goes. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate your time, and I really enjoyed having this conversation, and I hope people can take something away from this and have conversations of their own.
Yeah. Amen to that. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.